speak about certain aspects of the virtual and hybrid environments in the context of contextualization of our experience of places. When we are talking about our experience in general, we can divide it into three spheres. The natural, the virtual, and the hybrid, and of course this is a very simplistic division and only created with the introduction of the virtual and hybrid new experiences, hence we can talk about the natural. Within each of them, we can talk about the external, the external world that we experiment, that we experience. And by the external, I mean the physical mostly, the physical that we can experience with our senses. So we treat this external world in a realistic approach, philosophical realistic approach. I will not go into it because we don't have time, as basically shared, as objective. The object of our experience is shared. We are in the same room and we are all assuming that it is the same room, that we are sharing the same object of our experience, yet each of us is experiencing this object from a completely different perspective. We can't both be in the same chair at the same time. Therefore, the experience of this room for each of us is completely different. When we talk about the internal experience, I'm talking about everything that Carla described before, so all of our psychic experiences coming from reflection, memory, analysis, emotions, but also our rational procedures that we take in order to process all these experiences. Now, that type of experience, the internal one, of course, is also non-ubiquitous because it's happening within our physical selves. However, we can think about ways of mediating it, for example, through poetry or other means of art, so that we can share certain common experiences. And I think yesterday was one of the moments when we could feel synchrony in our experiencing of our internal processes in that sense. So art is very instrumental here. Now, when we think about the virtual external experience, what happens is that we are given a completely new opportunity. First of all, we can consider the object that is shared if we are experiencing it in a virtual instrumentarium as private. As we sit here, each of us could be actually having a different space in which we are operating, and each of them would be, for each of us, completely private and individual. It could be, however, ubiquitous if we are sharing the same one, because we can have an experience in VR from the same perspective of the same person at the same time. We can all occupy the same first-person character playing the same virtual space. And we can have a potentially identical experience. This also creates certain opportunities for our internal experience and reactions, both reflection, emotional load, etc., in reaction to such experiences of the external world in VR, via, for example, recording of our experience as process. Because when we are doing a process in a game, the first-person game, for example, in a virtual environment, we are making certain moral choices, for example, which are completely private and difficult to share in our real life, because nobody can repeat our experience from real life in exactly the same sequence, whereas in VR we can do that. So the internal experiences in VR are potentially identical and ubiquitous. When we go to the hybrid experiences of the external object, of course we have a layered superimposed VR experiences with those that I mentioned before, superimposed on the reality that we believe is shared, the one from the natural experience. We can have ubiquitous elements that are recontextualized to a new physical place. We can have a mix of all of them. What happens to the internal experience? Yes. It's similar. We can superimpose certain private contents and certain private narratives, certain private expectations, reflections, memories, etc., over a shared object. And each of us can have a completely different experience now in the mixed reality environment to everybody else, although we are sharing the same physical and natural object. I will move now to the second part of my presentation, the genius loci. You probably know this term. It's a place that is defined as not just a space in two-dimensional, three-dimensional framework, but a space that, as Christian Norberg Schulz once defined, transforms a place from a mere environment, a space, where elements or phenomena take place, to a phenomenon in itself. It's a place that captures our attention. It's a place that inspires our imagination, and now we're moving into the internal experience of something external that's concretized and inspired and finished by our own creative powers, and that generates meaning, not just for ourselves, but also for our community. In summary, a place that has a genius loci is a contextualized space, yes? A space that has concretized elements to it. A place that involves us aesthetically through certain elements that become a foci of our attention. Without them, we don't have a place with a genius loci. The genius is there, we feel it, we experience it. It is totalizing in a sense that a mere space that for us is infinite becomes a dwelling. And this is a term that's used mostly by Martin Heidegger, as you know. Oh, I haven't flipped the slide, I'm so sorry. Sorry. So the first slide was this one. I wanted to tell you about the genius loci that we have experienced 3 days ago. Okay, let's move. This is the quote I read to you. Now we're here. So it's gathering and totalizing in a sense that we own it. When we enter such a place with a genius loci, we believe it's private because we are inserting our private experiences, our internal experiences, memories, expectations, reflections, emotions into it, and aesthetic responses that are not objectively there, yes? And therefore, we believe it's homey. If we remember the remarks that our friend Adrian made at one of the presentations about the feeling of alienation from the VR experiences, this is the opposite of what the genius loci tells us about a place, about a space. It's somewhere we feel at home, yes? Hence the dwelling. It's a Heideggerian term that Norberg Schulz also borrowed. Now, that place also has a direction, a sense of direction and an orientation, usually created by some element that's a focus of it. And I will give you an example in a second, what it means. And also, the last characteristic of places with genius loci is its identity and identification that people can have with it. So it creates communities. It creates a shared experience that others can identify with and with each other through that place. Now my Polish friends can go to sleep because I will be talking about one particular place in Warsaw that they probably know very well. This is a roundabout, Charles de Gaulle roundabout, that is located in the very center of Warsaw at the crossroads north, south, and east-west. It didn't have that element until 2002 when the artist Joanna Rajkowska decided to build a palm tree that obviously cannot survive in the Polish climate. And it was received with great debate in Poland, and now, 10 years later, 11 in fact, it has become a pivotal recognized place that everybody wants to meet at, that people even stopped calling Charles de Gaulle roundabout. We call it the Palm Place. What is the Palm about? And why am I saying that this palm, as a, again, Heideggerian work of art, has recreated the whole space into a place with a genius loci? The title of it is Greetings from Jerusalem Avenue. Joanna Rajkowska went to Jerusalem before she made this piece of art and was under impression from places that had been obliterated during some conflict back then. And when she returned home, she studied the history of the street called Jerusalem Avenue. This is one of the roads, the one that goes east-west. And she discovered that there used to be a little village outside of Warsaw in the 17th century that was a settlement created by the Jewish community called the New Jerusalem. Hence, the road that connected that little village with the center of Warsaw was called the Jerusalem Avenue. That little village didn't last long because the Jewish community that had created it moved into the city center very quickly after as little as 20 years, but the place remained. For us, today's Warsawers, whenever we walk anywhere in Warsaw, what we experience is the feeling of loss. We walk and we know we're walking on the ashes of our ancestors who died in the Warsaw Rising, and especially in certain districts like Muranów, like Wola, we walk in the places where we can physically see gaps from buildings that had been destroyed and from the population and the community of our Jewish friends that have disappeared. This poem, when I walk from the Charles de Gaulle, the poem roundabout eastwards, always reminds me of that. I imagine those people who are missing. I imagine the Warsaw from before the Second World War. And it's a very powerful experience. And then I go back and right to the north of this palm tree is our university, where we learn about history, about culture, about art, about everything. And all this creates this completely irreplaceable genius loci for that place. Now, let's move to the content so you can see what can happen to this if we imagine that we move the Charles de Gaulle roundabout with its palm tree into the VR. We have lots of opportunities, and I think we also have threats there, VR and AR both. If we imagine that we are now entering a VR room where we can see the little village, the New Jerusalem, where we can see all the stalls, the houses that are missing, we are seeing them as though they were real. We are reacting to them as though they were external. They belonged to the objective reality and not our own experience, not the one we are concretizing. It's the one we're facing. We're facing as an encounter with the other. Yes? It takes away the pivotal point that gives us orientation in the real experience that I just showed you, because we can now not see the vertical dimension of our own experience that's represented metaphorically by the palm tree. We can now just walk around like we do in the city, and I call it this linear flânerism, a term borrowed from Benjamin, which may defocus us, yes? It can take away the focus of the experience. The spatial extension breaks the sort of peaceful feeling of dwelling in that place, of its enclosure that we are now used to in Warsaw, where we can either stay there and contemplate, or we can walk out of, or we can look from into the perspectives. When we start doing this in the VR, we are simply extending in infinity, basically, because the space is infinite and it doesn't have the kind of enclosure for us. Hello, I'm very, very pleased to be here. My name is Bogna Gladeno-Bidzińska. I'm Polish. I'm a PhD in philosophy. My field of research so far was focused on art philosophy and aesthetics. And my studies focused mostly on recurring ideas in culture, and especially the recurring idea of recurring themes in history of our culture, mostly Western culture, in the phenomenon called Renaissance. So I'm basically studying different renaissances of different ideas and forms and traditions in different fields of cultural life. So University of Warsaw is one of the biggest, actually the biggest university in Poland, but I've also done research at the Jagiellonian University, with whom I made links. I studied there for 3 years as a postdoctoral researcher and assistant professor. And that's where I made the links and established relations with researchers who have been the coordinators and the main authors of the CAFE project. So that's how I got involved. CAFE project is a multinational, multi-layer and multidisciplinary project sponsored by the Horizon Europe program. And it will last 4 years, starting now, basically in January 2023. And it involves 10 partners from different European countries, plus, of course, Kenya. And this is why we are guests to the Kenyatta University this month for our first opening mobility, where we all gathered to plan our scope of the project and our different activities, publications, and research themes for the future 4 years. The project is focused around the exploration of newest technologies, especially the digitalization of the experience of space in virtual reality, in augmented reality, and its relationship to the regular, natural, we can use different terms here, experience of art and of creativity as we know it so far. So we will be building different experiences and phenomena, and then investigating how the use of virtual reality and other digital technologies have changed our perceptions, have impacted the creativity and reception of such works. And also with a special focus on community building. So we'll be talking to communities, we'll be observing how communities are built around such phenomena, and hopefully giving some recommendations for both regulators in different countries and technology inventors and researchers and also artists maybe. So this symposium, as you've mentioned, it lasted 2 days. We had a special opening event on the prequel to the symposium on the 3rd day that was prepared by the partners from Italy and our collaborators also from Greece and Kenyatta University, 2 artistic teams who actually made the first experimental performance that connected both intercultural dialogue and technologies across dance and choir, and bridged the classical opera with traditional Kenyan legends and dance. It was marvelous, I think. And this opened up our discussions during the 2 following days about both art and theory, which were aimed at, first of all, at this beginning of the whole 4-year program, to see where we stand now. So all of the speakers were, in a sense, summarizing their so far research and experiences, so that we know where we're starting. And also, the other aim of the symposium was to get to know each other with our various backgrounds and various interests in both research and arts. And I think the symposium accomplished it beyond our expectations. We had 23 marvelous presentations from around the world, and especially here from Kenya. We had a speaker from Nigeria who presented online, and 3 other speakers, one from England, one from Spain, and one from Poland, who contributed as well. And I think everybody was very, very satisfied with the great amount of knowledge that we all gained from these presentations, including case studies and including even performances such as the one from the Bomas sample bar music. It was phenomenal. So multifaceted and very deep, I think. My presentation was supposed to take a look at the VR experiences and AR experiences from the point of view of the relationship between what we live as our internal experiences of reality, our reactions, reflections, emotions, memories, constructs, maybe dreams, maybe plans, in relationship to the very external experiences, those of the environment, those of the space, and those of the information that we gather while just being in the world, and how this relationship, the internal versus the external realms that we experience, will be affected by the introduction of the virtual reality or augmented reality. I took an example of a monument in Poland, a piece of art that has changed the identity of one very popular place in the center of Warsaw, where I come from, and imagined how taking that experience that this piece of art, this work of art has given us, how it will change if we take it into virtual reality. I don't think I offered much of a solution. I was just inviting my listeners to reflect upon such issues and to be sensitive when introducing virtual and augmented realities to different realms, to the fact that they have to be more open. I guess at this point in my life, a lot of my reflections are rooted very deeply and go back to many points in my research before. As I mentioned before, my main focus of study is the Renaissances. So I always look at how certain phenomena that seem very new to us today reflect other phenomena that were already there, but now reappear in different forms, and what those older or past phenomena and reflections can teach us about what we're doing today and what we're experiencing today. So for me, when I look at the VR and the AR, I immediately think of all the previous technologies that were aids for artists, such as camera obscura, for example, in the Renaissance, in the 1400s, or different tools and constructs that were mathematical, which is, in a sense, the proto-technologies that are made more difficult. And I try to transform those reflections and extrapolate them onto what is happening today. So I think this was my main inspiration for looking critically, maybe, at the new technologies we're talking about here. In the cafe project, what I will be involved mostly with in a creative way is looking at how, not exactly VR or AR, but another part of the new technologies that are being introduced as we speak, and that is the blockchain technology will impact the art world and community building around it. And especially not blockchain as used as a vehicle for sales of the NFT images or different digital arts, but especially in so much as it can help analog and traditional artists in promoting their work and in securing their income and authenticity and propagation of their work throughout markets and general culture. Yes. Oh, many. I think we will have to learn a lot of technology ourselves. We will need to learn how to manage teams and work with specialists in coding, specialists in law, specialists in the economics, specialists in the markets. Plus, we will need to be able to come up with methods of conveying whatever we hopefully manage and showing them that they can benefit from these new technologies in a safe and secure way, and helping building interfaces for them to be really easy to use. So I can see lots of obstacles on the way and hurdles to be transgressed, and yeah, yes. We're expecting that, but we're also ready to work on it all. Oh, it's been phenomenal. My stay here is coming to an end next week, so we are trying to make the most of it, still having workshops even this afternoon. Our friends from the Portuguese team will be sharing their skills in sculpture, in clay sculpture, and where they can take it into the virtual realities. Plus, we are trying to squeeze in the moments when we are not working directly on the project, on visiting the marvels of Kenya. So I have been to the African Heritage House, which is a breathtaking place for its architecture, situation in the landscape, and all of the art that's gathered there. We have visited the National Park of Nairobi as well, seen a lot of very interesting animals. And of course, we've been moving around Nairobi, getting to know its different districts, its galleries, its people, especially people. We've been meeting with art critics, with artists, with fellow researchers here at Kenyatta University and outside in different organizations and institutions. We've been meeting with NGOs, with private companies, and I must say we are all very impressed with very many aspects of the development of both the new technologies, but also with the art scene here in Nairobi. It's been a very fulfilling experience, yes. Oh, hopefully we'll be able to realize at least half of what we have been inspired to do. One of the very immediate projects will be an installation in one of the green parks of Nairobi of an exhibition of sculptures, and then we will proceed to build its digital twin in VR. And that's one of the projects. Then, as I mentioned, working with coders and developers for smart contracts and certification in blockchain. That's another project. And of course, then scientific publications and research articles, which my colleagues from the Polish Society of Aesthetics and myself are coordinating. So hopefully, yes, we'll realize a lot of that. If I was to give a recommendation is follow your heart and be bold about it. If you feel that something is important, it's important to you, to your community, to the people you work with, to the people you're working for, to your clients, and you see some inspiration in something that can be improved or introduced or built, just go for it. No matter what it takes, just go for it. Many people with whom I spoke back home were asking me, like, such a big consortium, 10 partners in foreign countries, how are you even going to manage this whole big corporation for 4 years? And we had an answer, we didn't know, but we just are going to do it. And it's happening. It takes time, it takes work, it takes a lot of stress sometimes, but it's happening. Not to mention that our goals are an open-ended question. So our goals, we don't know whether we will achieve them and what they will turn out to be, but it's worth doing. The journey is worth doing. So that's my recommendation. We are still working on our website because we just started the project, as I mentioned. So our website will be called Cafe with a PH, CAPHE.space. So probably within a month or two, we will have it full with content. We are gathering the contents now and building a lot of recordings and photos and and just descriptions, but we will be sharing it all through that website. Plus, we of course have social media. You can find us in Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, soon also in LinkedIn as Cafe.